Spider-Man Far From Home somehow managed to live up to the bar set by Avengers Endgame and delivered a terrific series of twists and surprises. Many of these surprises came from Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio.
You don't want any part of this.
Today, the Binger's gonna rank Mysterio's most disprovable illusions and lies from the hit MCU movie. If it weren't clear already, spoilers are in store. About halfway through the movie, the audience learns that Mysterio is tricking Tom Holland's Peter Parker using a series of drones, projectors, holograms, and practical effects. The illusionist villain is tricking people into thinking that he is a hero. The elementals aren't actually extra-dimensional threats like in the Marvel comics, and are instead just fake monsters. That's right, Mysterio is basically a Scooby-Doo villain. Only instead of real estate, he wants to be worshipped as a hero. And he might, by taking advantage of the willingness of people to accept falsehoods that fit their preferred narrative of world events. You have to wonder how exactly the elementals work though. Sure, they're holograms, and the drones inside them are the things destroying people and buildings, but why did they need to steal Tony Stark's drones then? If they already had this technology, couldn't they have just made more drones? Not to mention that their backstory of being interdimensional forces of evil, mentioned in every civilization, seems pretty contrived. Then again, this is a universe where time travel is a thing, so maybe it's only kind of BS. When Mysterio first tries to eliminate Peter Parker, he lures the young man to a warehouse fitted with a number of holographic projectors and drones. During this sequence, and in an effort to crush Peter's spirit, he suggests that Tony Stark's passing is the young hero's fault. During this speech, we see a tombstone bearing Tony's name before a zombie Iron Man springs out of the ground with spiders crawling all over his rotting face. This is undoubtedly cool, terrifying, and visually impressive. It also raises a lot of questions, especially considering how grounded this movie tries to be. Did Mysterio and the other disgruntled Stark employees have a three-dimensional model of Iron Man on hand for this exact situation? Because making something like that could potentially take days or weeks of a development team's time.
Not a great plan.
In the comics, Mysterio uses inhibiting gas to make people more likely to believe his illusions and fall under his hypnosis. The movie doesn't mention any of that though, and instead justifies everything through advanced technology. Time would still go into making these graphics though, and even a talented team crunching super hard couldn't pull them off. Although Mysterio making his team crunch super hard would make him a terrible boss, and therefore an even worse villain. A central motivator for the persona created by Quentin Beck is that Mysterio's family was destroyed by the elementals in his home dimension. This is why Mysterio is fighting tooth and nail against them. He's the last human from his home dimension whose sole desire is to avenge the passing of his loved ones. Man, is that a bogus origin story cliche. It's superhero writing 101 that a hero has a deceased family member or members. This kind of motivation for the character is downright hokey, and we can only hope that future Marvel movies don't introduce any more characters who actually have this origin. It's clear that Beck and his team have a lot of money at their disposal, which means that he can absolutely afford to hire a new writer, preferably one that's actually read a comic book and brings something new to the table. A big part of Mysterio's fake identity is that he's from an Earth that's in a different dimension. He claims that the undoing of the snap opened a bridge between their realities. This link was also further exploited by the elementals, which is why they're in this reality now. Aside from how cliched this origin is, people could also fact-check against it pretty easily. The first thing anyone would do when talking to someone from a different reality is figure out how their realities are different in major and insignificant ways. Of course, Spider-Man Far From Home doesn't really take the time to do this, as it would just tear apart its whole plot. Were the Beatles a popular band in your dimension too? Did New Coke actually succeed over there? These are the things that you're gonna ask a time traveler and then remember in case they ever slip up and reveal the lie. This lie is so BS that it made Nick Fury and Agent Hill, or at least the Skrulls impersonating them, realize that Mysterio was a fraud. In an effort to hype up their fused elemental monster, Mysterio's team creates an explanation for the creature's growing power. The lie that leads to Mysterio's downfall is that the elemental amalgamation is drawing its strength directly from the Earth's core. This lie breaks Fury's belief in Mysterio for a lot of obvious reasons. How is the monster suddenly able to draw energy from the Earth's core, and why didn't the other elementals ever try to do something similar? Even without Jon Favreau giving Fury a hint, the skeptical man behind the Avengers would have likely figured it out on his own. Mysterio fell into a classic trap for performers and storytellers. In trying to create tension and create hype for an encounter, they reach too far and break the audience's sense of immersion. He got greedy though, and ended up ruining his entire ruse. The fire elemental that Spider-Man and Mysterio fight in Prague is touted as the strongest of the elementals. This is because its fiery nature makes it hazardous to even touch the creature, and because it grows even larger every time it absorbs metal. This raises an interesting question though. What happens to the metal that gets inside the monster? The fire elemental isn't actually made of fire and is instead a hologram that seems real thanks to a variety of practical effects and advanced technology. So what happens to the stuff that the monster supposedly absorbs? Do the drones inside the monster destroy it? The movie isn't really interested in answering these questions, which is fine, since there's a lot of other great stuff going on in the film. But this flaw can't help but stand out against the villain's otherwise meticulously explained plan. Another BS element in Mysterio's warehouse of nightmares are the Spider-Man clones that bombard Peter Parker. It's a powerful moment that brings to life Peter's feelings of imposter syndrome and that he isn't a real hero. His mistrust of Mysterio and lack of confidence makes him feel way out of his depth. And the clones attacking him represent his feelings of drowning in the idea of Spider-Man. However, Parker wouldn't actually feel like he was being swarmed by copies of himself. Instead, it would probably feel like a bunch of drones just lightly nudging against him. Now sure, they look convincing to someone out of the know, but as soon as you're touched, the illusion is broken. While this is still a great scene in Spider-Man Far From Home, the theatrics do lead to quite a few nagging questions. In the mid-credits scene, we learn that Mysterio recorded his last encounter with Spider-Man and doctored the footage to make Spidey seem like a villain. This segment also reveals to the public that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. This revelation comes via J. Jonah Jameson, who is once again played by J.K. Simmons, which might be the absolute best thing about this movie.
He's a menace to the entire city!
This lie might be Mysterio's most frustrating because it turns the world against a character that's almost universally beloved by audiences. Viewers just want Peter Parker to be happy, and now he's gonna have to deal with the fact that everyone hates him, or they're at least conflicted about him. It'll be interesting to see how future films deal with this development. Either way, this change to the status quo means that the MCU will definitely head in a bold new direction moving forward. Spider-Man's fight with Mysterio in the warehouse is a terrific sequence that is nothing short of visually stunning. It really makes Mysterio feel like a master of illusions and unstoppable with his acquisition of Tony Stark's technology. It's also horrifying to watch and easy to understand why Peter feels so beaten and distressed afterwards. Again though, this scene raises a lot of practical questions. Unlike his other illusions, this one was done on the fly, with little planning involved beforehand. Did his team already have these holograms rendered, or did they somehow manage to make them in only a few hours? Did they have the warehouse already set up for these illusions, or can they just execute these lifelike sequences on the fly? Even if it does make Mysterio more of a threat, this is a pretty BS ability that is really overpowered. Perhaps Mysterio's most BS illusion comes moments before we learn that the character is really a villain. Here, he and Peter Parker discuss the teenager's wants in life after defeating the fire elemental. After gaining confidence from Mysterio, Parker gives him the Edith glasses that he got from Stark and leaves. Then the hologram of the bar disappears. Then the audience learns that the room is really filled with ex-Stark employees with an axe to grind and who are all working together to aid Mysterio. This illusion is BS for a lot of reasons. With so many people in the bar, it's highly unlikely that Peter wouldn't have noticed one of them acting out of character or someone accidentally breaking the hologram. It also seems like being in a room filled with people who want him to fail would have set off his spider sense. This seems like an unnecessarily big and complex trick to get the Edith glasses, when going to a real bar would have worked just as well. But then we wouldn't get to see Jake Gyllenhaal give an enthusiastic speech while wearing nothing but green spandex. So it might have been worth it after all. What do you think of our ranking of Mysterio's BS illusions? Please let us know in the comments section down below. While you're there, be sure to like this video, subscribe to The Binger, and click on that bell icon to make sure you get all of our future videos before anyone else. Thanks for watching.